The top movie, the top movie of the week for me of features is a movie called Kneecap. Now, this one has getting a little bit of buzz and a little bit of advertising out there, so you might be seeing this coming to a theater near you. It is independent, but I feel like it's getting a little push behind it because I think probably the promotion department is seeing that there could be some a little bit of broad-based appeal to this, at least in a in an underground independent sort of status. And I would agree. What do you got with Kneecap? This is taking place in Ireland. I think it's actually supposed to be like 2019 or something. I don't think it really matters. It's modern Ireland. Oh, this is directed by Richard Pepiat, I guess you'd say. And it starts out, and this is one of those movies that has voiceover, but I think in here the voiceover works and it kind of fits with the kind of the vibe of the movie, in that it kind of has the energy, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of comparisons to this. It kind of has that energy of a movie like Trainspotting, but I think this movie acts a little differently, and I think it works really well as well in its own right. It starts out and you just meet these two characters, two young guys, and they're essentially out in the forest having this rave. Oh, it really starts out and it says, like, with the voiceover, like, hey, when you hear stories about Belfast, all you see is this, and they have all this stock footage of, like, bombings and explosions and just, fights. And, of course, in the Northern Ireland, there's been all this conflict, the Troubles and all that stuff, all this conflict in Belfast. And that's all you ever think of with movies about Belfast. And then they immediately switch to, like, the fact that they are these young guys, they probably are like, what, maybe 20. And they're just out partying, raving in the woods, just, drugs and electronic music and, all the things you'd expect. And immediately as they're doing that, they get busted by the cops. They're running, and they're tripping off their brains on ketamine or something. The one dude, I know I'm just saying dudes because their names are really hard to get around. But I'll just say one's like Mochara. The other one's like Moglai Bap. So good luck remembering that. The main thing is Mochara, that guy. He he gets caught by the cops. He gets pulled in, and the other guy gets away. The guy that gets pulled in has an interpreter brought in to help the cops question him, because the thing about Ireland is that the Irish language is especially in Northern Ireland, is almost like outlawed. And this is something I don't know, so I'm going to be once again really vague on this because I'm not good on the history. But I guess the idea is that it's seen as occupied territory per se by England to some degree still, or at least at the time for sure. And the use of the Irish language was kind of pushed down. So then using the Irish language is seen as somewhat of a protesting kind of thing, to use the Irish language. And in this case, you're probably figuring like at least two young guys that are kind of in this underground, like, drug culture and, party culture and all this kind of stuff. They're probably seen as hoods per se, and using the Irish language as a way for them to kind of not be understood by the police. They call the police the peelers. And so the police pull in this teacher, he's a music teacher from nearby school, and because he can speak Irish well, and they come in there to interpret stuff. And right out the gate, this teacher sees this book that they've taken from the kid, and he's looking through it. And as he's looking through it, he just notices it's a bunch of, like, poetry and stuff. You're not sure why, but the teacher, like, kind of subversively steals this little book. And that's kind of your introduction to our main three characters. You got the two kids, Moglai Bap, the guy that got away. You got Mochara, the one that got caught. And then you've got, I'm not going to say what his name is in the movie because that would give away something. You've got the teacher. And an interesting dynamic starts occurring between them. And that is, this teacher, he's older, obviously. He's a respected member of society. His girlfriend, fiance, or whoever she is like really a political activist, but in a very structured, like, acceptable way for the Irish language being accepted and brought back, and not being allowed to be kept down, and wanting it to become back into the forefront. She kind of does these protests and things. This teacher, on the other hand, he's always had a dream of being like a DJ, and he sees in these poetry and the stuff that this young hood kid, uh, Mochara has written. He sees, wow, this could be great hip hop, and for whatever reason, he starts slowly teaming up with these kids, and then a strange alliance occurs, and essentially a band is formed, and that band is Kneecap. Now, all of this would make it sound like, oh, I've seen this before. I've seen this kind of like rags to riches, down and out person makes it up with music, and sure, all that stuff has been kind of a, I guess, a rote sort of a story that we've seen versions of throughout, movies. But what works here, I think, is there's a real, first of all, there's a real energy, and that's why I compared it to something like Train Spotting, because Train Spotting also had this, crazy energy. This movie has a lot of energy too, but it's a little more rough around the edges, even than Train Spotting, I think. Not as dour though, where Train Spotting was just about the drug lives of these people we were watching. Even though there was funny stuff in there, there was kind of a downward spiral. This kind of embraces, strangely, the quote hood mentality they have. It's kind of combining, the drugs aren't necessarily a full detriment for them. It's part of their lives. It's embracing their rough around the edge style. It's embracing the idea that they are going to be hip hop stars in Ireland, which is weird enough. They're going to try to be hip hop stars in Ireland. They're going to try to do it kind of on their own. And they're going to do it mostly in Irish, which is in its own way a kind of FU to the world that they're living in. But even all that would make it sound more serious than it is, because it's also just crazy energy fun. It's just following these characters is infectious. I think it is. And you're just in this weird world. You're in the world where they've got people who are against drugs, who are like a gang of their own. You've got the remnants of the former troubles and a lot of the people who were literally setting bombs, 10, 15 years earlier. You've got an estranged father who's in hiding, who is one of those kind of bomber type people, played by Michael Fassbender, who kind of comes in and out of their lives. But really, at the heart of it, it's about the two kids and this teacher and the way they unlikely team up and become this group. And the music itself, the hip hop itself, which is not really my thing, is great. And it will be well received, I think, by a lot of people. I think this could be a real sleeper hit, underground sleeper hit for a lot of, especially for indie movie fans. I could see this getting a kind of a lot of buzz and really being a favorite from this year. I liked it quite a bit. I think a lot of you guys out there will probably like this too. And the other thing that's interesting about it, and I did not do the research, so do not hold me to this, but these guys, the quote teacher and the two kids, are a real group. And this group, Kneecap, is a real group. So this, my understanding is, I think I could be right, I think this is like a fictional version of their actual rise to semi-fame. I don't know how famous they are, but in their world, they're pretty famous. So this is kind of a weird biopic. You don't even know it at the time. It doesn't have to be. I thought they were just totally going to be actors pretending to be this group that doesn't exist, but they actually exist. And the finale of the credits is, showing all these versions of them for the last 6 to 7 years, and these actual people doing these actual things. So I think that just gives it a whole other level that's interesting and makes people want to go back. I need to go back and find out more about them. Anyway, all of this is obviously fun and infectious and just a great movie. I really had a really good time with this movie, and I think a lot of our CinemAddicts crowd out there will enjoy this movie. Some won't, but I think a lot will. 4.5 stars for me. Definitely one of my favorite movies this year so far. It will be on my list, which is already 18 movies long, but that's still a good movie. It's a really good movie.